So we start with the resurrection ship, which is the conclusion of the Pegasus arc. That's 2 episodes, 11 and 12.
Indeed.
Um,
Causes everyone to stand down, thank goodness.
yeah, potential civil war is averted by Starbuck, of all people, when she jumps back in with the Blackbird, gets in really close, going, "What the hell are you all doing?" Starts talking to Apollo, and then pops up on Draydus accidentally, and everyone tries to kill her.
Because they're like, the pilots are all out. They're about to open fire. It was really like, shoot, I don't really know how they get out of this.
Yeah.
And then Starbucks shows back up and like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's how they get out of this. That actually really works.
Yep. So she gets the info to Kane, and as Stephen has already mentioned, Kane's anger and hatred against the Cylons immediately distracts her from the current
the other things she's angry about.
So it's like, start with this, and then I'll deal with you all later, basically.
Yep. We get a very uneasy truce, which ends up getting mediated by the president, Laura Roslin.
Who's definitely neutral.
Yeah, who's definitely neutral and is definitely not going to insist that Adama tries to get rid of Kane as soon as Kane leaves, which is exactly what she does.
Yep.
Basically urges Adama to get rid of her.
Yeah.
Kane promotes Starbuck to Pegasus CAD because Kane follows the principles of evolution, I suppose, and just assumes that Starbuck is better and therefore she gets to be CAG now.
It's not a good plan, but it's what they do.
No, I mean, Starbuck as an authority figure is probably not a good plan in any regard, but
as we will see in Scar,
that's what happens. She gets the CAG promotion. Starbuck then immediately is like, well, give Apollo's flight status back, please.
Yep, which is good.
And Apollo gets demoted again to lieutenant.
Which is less good.
And then Kane also makes a rather insane promise that they were going to go back to Caprica to rescue the survivors. The planet with a massive Cylon fleet around it.
Like, the stuff... So, okay, right, so this is now where I can discuss this. So, Starbuck and... When did Starbuck and... We didn't discuss how Starbuck and Hilo got back, did we? Oh, no, we did. Never mind, I forgot that we did. We did do that. Starbuck has had a great many relationships with a great many people.
Apollo's brother, Gaius Baltar, and Samuel Anders at the moment.
At the moment.
This list is incomplete. You may help by expanding it.
I don't think I want to go and help with that part, thank you.
And the fact that it was suddenly she was incredibly hung up on this one guy when her relationship with him didn't seem all too different to how it did with, at the very least, the will they won't they on and off again thing with
Apollo. Yep.
Was kind of odd.
Yeah, it's a bit.
She mainly like, I want to save these people, but mainly I kind of just want to send this guy because I'm in love with him. But you know, it's different to what I had with other people who I'm also kind of super over really quickly.
Yeah.
So she kind of just is a bit odd here, and also gets manipulated really easily by Kane, and just being like, oh yeah, we'll go back.
It's important to also mention, it's something we've missed in when we were talking about Pegasus, but in Pegasus, she petitions Adama and Roslin to go back, and they basically say no because it's too dangerous.
No, it's too dangerous, which is fair.
Which is, yeah, it is. It is too dangerous.
For now.
Sharon's checked over by Doc Cottle, who says that she's going to be all right, and we get Dr. Cottle being a genuinely nice person and going, this is not good.
Doc Cottle is hard to read sometimes, but he's a good doctor.
I will go out of the way and say that Dr. Cottle is genuinely just a good person.
Yeah.
Although a bit of a difficult person.
He's difficult, but he's a good man.
We get more stuff with Gaius, and the six who we discover is called Gina? I think it's Gina. Gina.
Is it not Gina?
Pronounced somewhat like that.
Something like that, guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
And remind me, because I've forgotten. Was she aware that she was a Cylon agent?
Yes, she was.
She was aware, yeah, okay.
She begs guys to kill her.
Mm-hmm.
And then she tells them that the Cylon vessel is a resurrection ship where the Cylons are downloaded into new bodies.
Indeed.
And the only way for her to die permanently is for that ship to be destroyed.
And thusly, she's okay with them destroying it.
Yes, which is why she gives the information.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Kane then immediately takes that as, yay, this is what I've been looking for. We're going to make them all mortal and make them all fear us.
Which is definitely what they're going to, yeah.
And then the 2 plans for simultaneous assassination begin.
They do.
Where she tells her Colonel Jack Fist to use his relationship with Saul Tide to get position on Galactica with a team of Marines to kill Galactica's officers at the end of the next battle.
Everyone.
While Adama talks to Starbuck and goes, I want you to assassinate Kane once the fleet is destroyed. We also get
only Kane.
Yeah, and only Kane. Which is, it's an important difference there.
Because Kane knows that people like Adama, and if she kills Adama, she's still not going to have them on her side. So she's got to kill everyone, because she's really dumb.
Yep. And we also get a reference to a potential incident, which is laughed off as a joke, but will later prove to not be a joke, which is Pegasus' encounter with a small civilian fleet, which we will talk about in Razor.
Indeed. Yeah, we've kind of skipped over Fisk, because he's an interesting character, because he's not
awful.
He's not awful. He's definitely corrupt, as we'll find out.
Yes.
But, he's kind of just like, and she did this thing. No, she didn't.
Definitely didn't. Will
definitely
not.
didn't kill her second in command. Also, strip these parts and leave them for dead. No, she didn't do any of that.
None of that. Yep. Don't tell her that. I don't want to die. We of course then move on to part 2.
We do.
Where 2 Pegasus crewmen start by confronting Hilo and Tyrrell in Pegasus' brig.
They do.
Where they start doing torture methods developed by the United States. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
We're now blocked by the CIA.
Yeah,
they are angry that they killed their officer, which, I mean, again, fair enough, I suppose.
He was also an arsehole.
He was a terrible person, but they do not have the same perspective on Sharon or Cylons as a whole.
It's also
that they do.
They said something along the lines of he saved our lives and that type of stuff. So there might have been some lingering loyalty there.
Loyalty.
Which you said was going to get explained in Razor, I thought, and it didn't.
Yeah, it didn't actually. In the end.
I was waiting the whole time for him to do something heroic.
No.
Something vaguely decent, and there wasn't anything.
No. I thought there was. I'd say it might come up later on in one of because some of these side Pegasus characters do come back.
So yeah, it's possible in future we get it. Then that might be it.
But
yeah.
So we
Tyrrell
get
and Hilo don't really care.
Yeah. Well, they don't care, apart from the fact they get beat up by so.
I mean, obviously they get beaten up, and that's not fun. But they just are like, we're not being killed, and it was, worth it to protect Sharon, so we'll just deal with this.
Yeah. We then get Fisk coming in and proving to be at least
to be again somewhat moderately decent.
Yeah, basically it's like, no, stop torturing the prisoners. This is not a good idea. They're already going to die anyway.
Yes. Because if Kane gets her way, then we'll still be
dead. Kane then has a discussion with Starbuck again and says, don't let her consciousness dictate how to behave in difficult moments.
You've got to be a razor.
You've got to be a razor. Apollo agrees to help Starbuck with her assassination.
Yes.
But he does end up, I believe, expressing some discomfort to Adama. Goes, if we do this, then it's not setting a good precedent.
He's unsure. Adama's unsure.
And
Starbuck's
unsure.
Fisk is also unsure, to be fair.
Yeah, but also scared out of his mind.
But also terrified.
Yeah.
Again, it shows you the way. It's like, please do this for the sake of the ship. And everyone's like, well, I'm not sure, but okay.
Yeah.
And Fisk is like, yeah, I'll do it, I guess. Yeah. Indeed.
Adama invites Sharon, and we get an interesting conversation between them, where he asks why the Cylons hate the humans, and she replies that the Cylons don't hate humans, they just think them unworthy of life.
Which, you know, with a lot of what we see in this show,
isn't wrong.
I can't really blame him.
Yeah.
Can't blame them.
The battle begins, and we get a scene where Starbuck and Fisk pass each other, and they wish each other good hunting.
Yeah. It's a good moment, in a way.
And then we get one of the most beautiful battle scenes that the show produces.
Pretty great. It's pretty great. Yeah.
Too.
It's a good battle. Get to see the Pegasus in action, which is awesome.
And Galactica beating up on those Cylon ships. We get the Blackbird going in, and then we get contrived plot device to destroy destroy the spaceship that will be very useful in future plots, but they don't have a plan for.
This is the
Blackbird's destruction.
This is the one bit of this episode that I didn't love, and it was the start of the end for a while.
Yeah, so the Blackbird just gets randomly destroyed, and Apollo ejects.
Space debris.
And then we have a moment of like sadness with Apollo. I believe this was one of the first episodes which employed the start at the end thing, which you really hate.
Oh, which 7 hours earlier, which they just did to death, and it was just like, no, stop, please stop it, guys.
Please play the events live.
You're good because the thing was, it's like you're a good enough show.
You don't need to do this.
You don't need to do this. Like it can be fun in other shows, and like in worse shows and better shows to do it once in a while. Just be like, oh, this is going to be interesting. How does it get there? But they did it so many times.
So yeah, they end up he ends up destroying the FTL though, and we get the Raptors and Vipers destroying the Resurrection ship and achieving the aim.
Mm-hmm.
And then both assassination plots don't go off. Neither Captain or Admiral pulls the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
But I tell you who does pull the trigger. Guinan, because she, with the help of Baltar, escapes. And
she does.
Because Baltar doesn't want to kill her, he basically turns around and goes, no, what you need is not death, it's vengeance. Because we've learned nothing.
Yep.
And she then goes and shoots Kane, and we get a comment which doesn't make sense in this episode, but does make sense once you've seen Razor, which is, frack you, you're not my type.
That is what she said. That does make sense now.
Yep, it was planned.
Also, she was your type, though. You were in love with her. So
but again,
do you think she was just going along with it because of that, or do you think, as a 6, she ever developed any feelings? Because I think she was just dating Kane to get what she wanted. I think because you can see examples of Cylons that do actually fall for people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but I genuinely don't think that Gina fell for Kane.
I don't know. I feel like maybe she might have a little bit when Kane wasn't being a terrible person.
It's difficult to have a physical relationship without it turning sentimental.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's a debate I think that is a bit more expansive, and one that might even take like a full deep dive into that character, because Guinan shows up a little bit more, whereas Kane only shows up in Razor again.
Mm-hmm.
We then get a eulogy for Kane, where Starbuck says some things which show that she was perhaps a bit too close to Kane at the end.
Yep.
Fisk becomes commander of Pegasus.
Apollo
confesses to Starbuck that he wanted to die. Hilo and Tyrrell return to Galactica. Apollo gets his command back.
Mm-hmm.
And Adama now commands the 2 battleships as Rosalind promotes him to Admiral.
Admiral Adama!
Which finally gets us Admiral Adama,
which
was going to happen eventually, because in the original series he was Admiral Adama. And also President Adama.
Oh.
Which, hey, maybe.
Might still happen.
So then we get into a collection of episodes which can be best described as experimental and ideas that perhaps didn't reach their true potential, and maybe
and
one
wrong
good
and
episode.
dumb that we didn't like.
Yeah. So, Epiphanies. Laura Roslin is about to die.
She should have died.
She orders Sharon's pregnancy terminated because she thinks it's a threat to the fleet. We get some flashbacks as she's on her deathbed.
Yeah.
While Baltar tries to figure out a way to prevent the death of the child, which he eventually does by using the child's blood cells to kill the cancer, because they don't have a blood type, I think.
Yeah. Which does make sense. It worked, but
yeah, it worked, and she gets back to life. But Roslin now remembers Baltar at the Ministry of Defense with the Six.
She does.
Which immediately turns what was a okay, I'll work with you because you're better than Zarek to you are now a massive threat.
Yep. Indeed.
Yeah,
they make it work, but
yeah, and then
we discussed as to why she probably didn't die.
Yeah. Then we get
up and they didn't go anywhere.
There is more for her to do. It's season 3 and 4. Trust me.
I suppose.
They would have had to have found a new character to fill that role, and for reasons that we'll see later.
She might still die.
Yes.
She might still die before they reach Earth, in which case, that's fine. If she reaches Earth, it's done. Don't like it.
Anyway, we also get Baltar reading the letter that Roslin was going to leave for him before she died, and he doesn't like that letter because it doesn't play to his ego, so he gives Guinan on Cloud 9 the nuclear warhead that she
I forgot about that. I forgot about that.
Honestly,
You forgot about Gaius being a dum-dum, did you? Because he's an idiot.
Scene, oh god.
Oh dear.
You don't give a suicidal person a bomb.
Nuclear warhead.
Well, to be fair, she's not suicidal. Well, no, you're
He
right.
was in the previous episode.
Was suicidal. But they're not just that. They're also a group of Cylon sympathizers.
Yeah.
Who already have blown a load of stuff up.
Yeah, they blew up a lot of stuff because they want to sympathize with the Cylons and become friends with them, except one of them is a Cylon and they don't even know, and it's just manipulating them pretty much because she's like in charge. It's really dumb.
Proof that the
humans
idea
being
was
dumb. The whole idea was dumb. That was not a good episode. Did not like that one.
Yeah. Well, like I say, Epiphanies, Laura Roslin has to survive for reasons that you'll see later.
Luckily, we're going somewhere better. Oh wait, it's Black Market.
It's the worst episode of the season. Literally.
Do we need to discuss Black Market?
We do need to discuss Black Market, unfortunately, but we'll skim it very quickly. So Lee does some investigating. Fisk dies in a dumb way.
So dumb. How did they get in his office? It makes no sense.
Gaius and Sultai are doing stuff on the black market. Apollo's doing stuff on the black market. He's investigating. Laura appears to be delusional, thinking that the black market could be stopped.
Yeah, the one thing I will say for this episode is the way that it shows how important like a black market actually is in this kind of situation.
Yes.
And how it does, everyone does kind of need it and use it, even if they might denounce it in public. Like, I did quite appreciate that. That was quite interesting. It's just everything else.
There's a sort of half-baked attempt to link Tom Zarek to the whole thing.
Ideas in here. The stuff with Zarek doesn't work. The
idea was that they wanted Zarek to sort of end up controlling the black market, and that this whole episode was supposed to be Zarek manipulating Apollo to get control of the black market, but it doesn't work out that way because Zarek just sort of shows up, does some things, and then it's implied that he's in charge of it at the end. It's like, what?
And then nobody comes back up, at least as of yet. The stuff with Apollo, again, it's nice to have an episode with him, and he's kind of like, a bit more gung-ho because he does basically just have a death wish.
Yeah.
Which is, again, it's fine. But it could have done much more with it, I think.
We get Apollo also reflecting on a relationship he had on Caprica as well.
We do get that, which is again interesting.
Which is why he's in a relationship with a prostitute who has a child in this, because the idea is that she looks somewhat like who he was going to marry.
Which again, that stuff
and
was
the
kind of
child she was
interesting.
going to have.
Was this another one with 2 days earlier?
This was, yes, it was. It started with him getting strangled in
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
And then they confront the guy, and Apollo's
Like the
basically
guy.
like, yes, we need the black market, but no, I don't want you to be trafficking children, and then he shoots him in the head.
Yes, because that child is getting stolen. And again, yeah, that bit was half decent, but yeah. It's a totally human plot, which are often the worst.
Yeah.
And it was.
Going from one of the worst episodes to what some people consider one of the better episodes, but which I know we have some interesting opinions on, Scar.
This is why we now have the rule on Cabincast of if it's a really great episode,
shut up.
Don't say anything beforehand.
You're not allowed.
It might unfortunately ruin the episode.
Yeah. So I bigged this one up, and it had
You bigged this one up, and then it was black market.
Yeah.
Because you got the order wrong.
Yeah, I got the order wrong.
And then you re-bigged it up.
Yeah.
And we were just kind of underwhelmed.
Yeah, I like this episode. I'm pretty sure you like it as well, Stephen?
I love Scar. I've liked the idea of a raider that was out there. You know, I like the idea of the raider being out there, developing its own sort of personality and evolving, because it reminds you that the Cylons, every part of them does have, its own sort of personality. They have their own culture.
Yeah.
It isn't basically just a Viper, which is driven by a pilot. It is its own being. And in this case, Scar is not just a dangerous ship, but it's an ace Cylon rider that has been, tearing everything up.
Agreed.
Yeah.
This is definitely not a bad episode. It's not Epiphanies, it's not Black Market, it's not Sacrifice. I would even say it's better than The Captain's Hand. However, it's not that good. Like the stuff with Scar, I agree is really cool. It's a really interesting concept because obviously the Cylons can come back from the dead, as we do see in Downloaded later, but it's still not pleasant. So they want to try and stay alive as long as possible, and that's what Scar does, and that's really cool. But all the stuff with Starbuck and Cat, is it Cat? It is Cat, isn't it?
It's Cat, yes.
Yeah.
Cat and their new pilots, and it does the whole. This was another 2 days earlier one again, wasn't it?
Yes, it was another 2 days earlier one.
Which again just started off in a negative place.
Basically, all are.
And yeah, I just didn't like any of the human interaction again, really.
Also, interesting enough, I'm just going to put it off on the side talk, but one of the call signs for one of the pilots that gets killed by Star is Jojo.
Jojo!
How much for the Bizarre Adventure? It's been cancelled.
He cancelled. Scar has killed him. But yeah, it's interesting concept. I think a lot of people liked it because of the focus on like small fighter combat, and it is one of the best small fighter combats we get.
True, the combat's good. The combat
during
is good.
This episode. I appreciate the dislike from it. And again, it's not necessarily my I think it's quite good, but I'm not up there with it's one of the best of the
like a lot of the like
the
logic and Cat and like the Goddam moments that they have for each other are just like so dumb and makes no sense. It's Starbuck just again in a leadership position just
bad.
Just bad. It does not function well.
Yeah. Which I mean is part of her character, I suppose.
It is part of her character, but it gets annoying. Moving on to better things.
Sacrifice.
Oh wait, Sacrifice.
An episode that doesn't even get a picture on the Wikipedia page. Sacrifice.
Some humans are dumb.
Oh no, this isn't the one I think it is it? Because I know that it.
Welcome to an episode where we get a love triangle between D, Billy, and Apollo.
Oh god, this one.
Which I mean, like, and that's not the worst part.
Yeah,
like we've kind of been slowly building to the D Apollo thing a little bit.
Shows up.
Ellentine's there, and it isn't the worst.
Somehow, then none of that is the most annoying part of the episode. The most annoying part of the episode are the terrorists who are after the Cylon Sharon.
There is a terrorist lady.
Yes.
Whose husband died off-screen in a thing we didn't see.
Yes.
They could have, I think, at least made it someone that we didn't know but would have been aware of, like when they vented the bit on the Galactica in like the first season,
Yes.
because that was the only way to save the ship or something like that, to make it a bit more like, oh, okay. But no, it's some random woman who lost her husband at some random point, which again, very sad, but okay. And they're like, we're here, and we're gonna hold you all hostage and do bad things until you give us the Cylon, who's been helpful.
Yeah. We want to kill the helpful Cylon because we don't know what the Cylon is doing about. And
we don't know what's going on. We don't know what we're doing.
This episode, other than being a thinly veiled ability to talk on about like terrorism, which you know, like I say, it never more the guy who ran the series has stated on several accounts, this and also on Black Market, his disappointment with it.
Yeah,
it could have been a lot better. But it was also an excuse to get rid of Billy as well, because Billy's actor was no longer available, and they needed to get him out. And I did state that became sort of apparent around the time of Epiphanies, so it might have been that Laura Roslin actually ended up surviving that section because they knew they couldn't replace her with Billy.
Yeah.
So I suspect there might have been an idea that they'd replace her with Billy, and then new character Tori Foster, who we also see later on in this season, would replace Billy as Billy's aide.
Yeah.
As he ascended to the presidency.
Yeah, and like again, the lady who plays the main terrorist woman is great. She does really well what she's given. We have all the actors who we usually we have who are great are great. Just a lot of the story doesn't add up. Like they close the doors from some button thing that's on the inside, some kind of emergency shutdown.
They can't open it again until Apollo puts some. I think it's Ellen's drink, which is like got dry ice in it. Puts it under the oxygen sensor.
Under the oxygen sensor in a vent.
Yeah, which then
they could have come through, but then the Marines don't come through the vent; they come through the door, and then Caprica, and then Starbuck's there, and then she loses people. She shoots Apollo.
Yep, that happens.
By accident, for some reason, because Apollo still just wants to die.
Yep, basically.
It's just yeah. Captain's Hand.
Captain's Hand, which I'm gonna have, which doesn't even have a Wikipedia
have any info
page.
on it.
It doesn't have a wiki page, so I'm gonna have to do this from memory. Thankfully, I know a lot about Captain's Hand because I like this episode. Captain's Hand, we get a new commander, the engineer for Pegasus, Barry Garner, who
is gonna last a long time. Get used to it.
He's the person who was mentioned replacing Fisk in Black Market. So we don't see him till now. Starbuck has been reassigned to be head of Pegasus's air wing to try and get them into shape, because Pegasus has been slipping quite a bit since heydays. We'll put it that way.
Yep.
And Garland's not making it any better because he's very overbearing and not particularly in touch with his crew.
He's the chief engineer.
He likes machines and he wants his ship to work like a machine.
He's a stickler for rules. He's a good engineer. He should be an engineer. He would rather be an
engineer. Yeah. So the issues are becoming a bit too much, and Admiral Dharma sends Apollo over to try and smooth
things over.
Yeah. Things between him and Starbuck are a bit iffy at the moment because, again, the whole "I just shot you a couple of days ago and you're only just recovered now, and now you're here on the new command that I definitely didn't take to run away from you." Hashtag. At least that's my theory as to why Starbuck is all of a sudden the CEO of Pegasus, because that comes out of bloody nowhere.
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
And Pegasus then loses a routine training flight. They want to go after him, but Adama's like, no, don't do that. It could very easily be a Cylon trap. But they do end up going after them, because of course they do, and it turns out to be a Cylon trap. And Garner has to go down to engineering because there's a problem that only he can fix, and leave Starbuck in command of the Pegasus. Not Starbuck, Apollo. In command of the Pegasus while Starbuck is out defending the Pegasus, and he does a sterling job with the assistance of Lieutenant Hoshi.
Yeah. This is also the nuke episode, isn't it?
No.
Was that the next one?
No. That's Lay Down Your Burdens.
Is that all the way Lay Down Your Burdens?
Yes, it is.
Damn.
I will explain.
In which case, this one's much better in my head. Sorry.
Yeah. So, Captain's Hand. It's a decent episode that ends with.
Didn't love it at the start. Because it's like, great, we've got another character who showed up out of nowhere, like that political guy last time, who's apparently super important and we've never seen before, and is going to disappear after the episode.
Yep.
But they turned it around.
They did.
Because he dies in the end. But he manages to fix the problem. He does what he does. He dies heroically. It's obviously it's sad that he dies, but he ends up putting his trust in the others to do what they do, to put in Apollo, which gets Apollo into a position of, okay, I'm good at this. I can actually do this. Which
Apollo
is
regains some of his confidence and becomes the leader of Pegasus.
What's the stuff that's happening with Roslin, though? Because we haven't talked about that yet, because there's a stowaway on Galactica.
There is, yes. So, good on you for remembering this. So, the B-plot is there's a stowaway in Galactica. It's a young girl from Geminon who is pregnant, who wants an abortion because she doesn't want to raise the child, and because the Geminis are, I know, the Geminis are anti-abortion because they're very religious, and the Geminis, who are a massive supporter of Roslin, demand the girl back. And in the end, Roslin, who is a feminist who's been actively fighting against this type of stuff for all her life, gives in and actually says, no, you can have, I believe she says, you've got your pound of flesh, now leave.
Yeah.
But not before she grants the asylum request and allows the abortion to go ahead for the young girl. This is potentially part of like a breakdown between the Geminis and Roslin, which may lead to further unfortunate events.
Yeah, because the other issue is they need more people. They need more children.
Yeah, they flat out need the population.
Is very small.
But is this the end of this episode? Gaius makes a speech.
Yes, at the end of this episode, Gaius says he supports the president's actions, but cannot, in good conscience, continue along with them and announce his bid for the presidency.
It's like, Gaius, which
turns the race into a freeway race between Roslin, Gaius, and Zarek. Then we have Downloaded, which is our first episode wholly carried mostly by Cylons.
And my favourite episode of season 2.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that one.
Of Downloaded.
Yeah.
We get insights into how the process works, and I'm gonna leave you guys to discuss this for a bit because I need to do something quickly.
Indeed.
Okay.
But I'll be back in a second. So, thoughts and opinions on this?
So we start this one with you've got Roslin and Adama struggling to decide what to do with the Cylon-human hybrid, as Sharon's going into labour, so going to have that on your hands pretty soon. But meanwhile, the more important thing is you've got Caprica 6 and Boomer being downloaded and reborn on Caprica. And we start with Boomer, right, kind of waking up and like screaming in this pod thing, right?
It's the Cylon download.
Download thing, and they're like, okay, you're okay, you're alive, you're good. Exactly.
I'm describing it awfully.
It's how they resurrect. You're right. You're off money.
It's a resurrection pod.
It's a resurrection pod. It doesn't seem pleasant.
I mean, especially if again you were a properly indoctrinated agent, so you don't know how everything works.
Exactly. Absolutely. No,
Must
you're
be a
right.
massive
That's
shock.
something I hadn't considered for a
I
long
hadn't thought
time.
about that. No,
because
it's a good point as well, Chris.
She does come back from not knowing she could come back.
She just gets randomly shot by Callie, and it's just like, what? Oh, I am here now. And yeah, I mean, honestly, again, it's been so long since we watched this. But like a lot of this episode, you just have Caprica 6 and Boom, and they kind of start to get along better, and they're on Caprica, and there's just like this whole silent civilization. And there's all these other sixes and boomers and Weaselmans and other people.
Weasel man.
Tom, I feel like I'm missing big points on this one.
It's really strange when they sort of act like people, but not really.
So I thought it was interesting.
The surreal case of the Cylons. You know, where they've taken over from the humans, but they don't seem to have really understood. They're living in the same way almost, but it's a facsimile. It's not real.
No.
It feels like it's all manufactured. We get some stuff about how actually traumatic the resurrection process is. And this will come back later in future seasons. Where Cylons who have gone through multiple resurrections at the hands of either the humans or their own, and how that affects them.
Sure.
It's part of the reason as well why, for example, the 6 models are so differentiated in their sort of stylings. That's more to do with the fact that they've had to live lots of sleeper agents and different lives, different espionages, and then the sort of trauma of that has led to them diversifying a lot quicker than certain other models, which are far more standardized, like, for example, Weaselman. Who shows very little differentiation throughout the duration of the series.
Yep.
There is also Head Gaius.
Yes.
Head Gaius is so good.
So now this is a bit interesting because it once again begins to imply that there's something more going on with the headspace people.
So interesting.
As we have Gaius Baltar in the same position that Head 6 is with Gaius Baltar, real Gaius Baltar, on the Galactica, similarly influencing things seemingly from the background.
Yeah.
Getting Caprica 6 to get close to Boomer, and then using the two of them to convince the rest of the Cylons, as we'll see later, that perhaps killing all the humans is not the ideal solution.
So
what
was it that brings them onto that revelation? It's gone from my mind.
So they end up going to a cafe together with
Media
with a number 3
lady,
not the exact same person, but a similar model, who's in charge of the recovery efforts for Cylon agents.
Indeed.
And that gets blown up by the human resistance because they're still about.
Indeed.
And we get Anders, who failed to escape in time, stuck with these 3 Cylons.
Yeah.
And the 3 tries to kill Anders, but is killed by Caprica 6.
Yeah.
Who then says we have a few moments before she resurrects. And then, on the advice of Head Baltar, convinces Boomer that they should use their experience and their influence as war heroes, the first real war heroes the Cylons have ever had, to begin influencing the culture towards a different path. And that is sort of successful and sort of not successful, as we will see later on.
Yeah.
When I was first watching this one, the reveal that there's a Head Baltar as well completely surprised me.
Yeah. It's really interesting to see him play like still Baltar, but very different Baltar.
Yeah.
As well. Like the outfits he wears and stuff like that. Was really interesting. because he wears like all these like fancy garish shirts and that kind of stuff. It's really interesting to have it kind of that flipped.
Again, I'm gonna have to leave for a few seconds.
That's fine.
So
I can remember
lay
more.
down your burdens is the next one.
It is, but we're not
and-
going to talk about that yet.
No, we're going to talk about Razor.
Right.
So you guys can begin talking about Razor. I'll be back in a bit.
Unironic,
so
do you
have
think
a
I've
page
seen the
up,
most
Razor.
recently?
I was going to say, so Razor, we will kind of we've all reacted to that. That's on the channel already. Stephen was there for this, so yeah, it's cool. It's got more Kayan. She's still terrible. The whole analogy of a razor is patchy. It makes sense, but
it does, but it's not one you'd feel a normal person would ever use.
No, it's a bit odd. We have another character who is kind of the main character we follow.
And I'm back. Sorry for the interruption.
That's all right.
That's right.
The main character we follow dies at the end.
You need the name of the main character.
Yes,
it's Kendra Shaw.
Kendra Shaw.
Oh,
Major Kendra Shaw, who we see somewhat in the background during the Pegasus arc, and I think some other places. Although I don't know if it's the same actor, but it is stated as the same in the
same person. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we get
Apollo's in charge. That's fun.
Yeah, it's the Apollo in charge. It's a fun, interesting adventure, and we of course watched the extended version with the stuff with Adama as well in the first Cylon War.
Yes.
And the amazing battle scenes with Galactica and Columbia at the end of the Cylons War.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's an interesting context giver, particularly for Kane, and to a lesser extent Adama, and somewhat Apollo. But most of the main cast that appear are sort of more in the background in favour of Kendra Shaw and the two Adamas and the dead spectre of Helena Kane.
Yes.
And we also get a warning.
Yes. So at the end they're on some kind of ship.
Yes, so it's a Cylon ship? It's not a resurrection ship, it's a Cylon base star prototype.
Right.
So they had base stars in the first war, but they looked very different to how they looked in this series because they're the old base stars from the old series, which are these big circular disc things. And the one that we end up on is sort of like a combination of like a disc and the spikes that we see later.
Yeah.
And on there is a thing called the hybrid, which is controlling the ship. It's almost like a central brain for the ship, because the ships are, of course, alive.
Indeed.
Cylon ships. So in the same way that the Raiders have like a central nervous system, central brain area controlling their functions, each ship has a central brain. And this is the first of those hybrids, which implies that they're probably on the other Cylon vessels as well. There will be lots of interesting stuff there. It tells Kendra Shaw before they destroy the ship, because of course Kendra Shaw stays behind because she has to detonate it manually.
Yeah.
That Starbuck will lead the human race to its destruction.
Yeah. I'd forgotten that.
Which is an interesting prediction and one that we'll have to keep an eye on for later.
Indeed.
Other than that, most of what we can talk about Razor we've already talked about previously in its review. It's a very good two-part mini-movie, and it started the mini-movie trend with Battlestar Galactica, and of course we get the plan, which we will watch at the... Actually, we can probably watch the plan. No, we can't watch the plan. We have to wait until the end of Season 4 to watch the plan.
Yeah.
Because it spoils things for Season 4.
But
we will eventually go back and watch the plan. It's an interesting movie, although I've suggested it's not as good as Razor, but we'll see.
That's fair enough.
Which then leads us on to Lay Down Your Burdens, which is one of the... I like this finale almost as much as I like the finale of Season 3.
It's good.
It's a good finale.
Did enjoy it.
So, the context behind this is it's now election season, and we've got the incumbent, Laura Roslin, versus the newly formed coalition of Tom Zarek and Gaius Baltar.
Mm-hmm.
Roslin is winning, or at least it seems she's winning, but then they discover a planet. It is an awful planet. It is like one of the worst planets possible. It is a tundra. There's only a few areas which are actually capable of supporting life on the entire planet. It's rainy, it's windy, it's basically the United Kingdom except without the trees and the greenery.
Yeah.
And it's discovered by accident during a mission back to Caprica as they're trying to go and rescue our friends on the surface.
Yeah.
Samuel Anders. That's led
which
by
they're finally
Starbuck.
doing, which is something.
Yep. Gaius and Tom discover this new planet when it gets announced. There's a new planet, and they immediately latch onto it. They start calling it New Caprica to try and bring images of the relatively beautiful world of Caprica to the mind of the people, suggesting that it's a good place to lay down. It's in the middle of a nebula where the Cylons can't really find them, supposedly.
Yep. It's a smart move. It's also dumb, but it's smart.
Whereas Roslin only wants to use it as a layover area.
Yeah.
Baltar pushes for full settlement.
Indeed.
And that's where part 1 sort of begins to end off. Other stuff in part 1, we get Galen Tyrrell sleepwalking and then randomly attacking Calais.
Yeah, that was pretty terrible.
Because of a nightmare. And he seeks religious counselling from a priest named Brother Cavil, who we will be seeing a lot of.
He's great. He's a very fun character.
Tyrrell explains that he had some dreams of jumping off the Hangar Bay catwalk to his death. And Cavil suggests that it's his conscience, saying that he wants to kill himself, for he fears that he is a Cylon sleeper agent.
Yes.
Like Boomer.
Yeah.
And Tyrrell then asks, how can you be so certain I am human? And Cavil statistically reassures him that he's not a Cylon because I'm a Cylon and I've never seen you at any of the meetings, which, I'm sure that's just a joke.
And he's great
and
because
that Tyrrell should return to his duties without worries.
He's actually a decent, church person.
Yeah.
And makes some good points and kind of does actually help to allow. But it also is a Cylon.
The rescue. Yeah. Then of course the rescue team arrives on old Caprica to rescue Samuel Anders. The resistance has been reduced, presumably after bombing places. The Cylons took them a bit more seriously.
Yeah.
And they are pursued by Cylons and come under immediate attack, which leads to an 18-hour standoff.
It does.
Which is where part 2 picks up.
It does. And they have left.
They leave after 18 hours of standoff, and we get the reveal that Brother Cavil is a Cylon because there's another Brother Cavil. And he's right there.
Gods, and let's pray, everyone. And it's like, oh shoot, oh no.
Yeah.
Isn't there this where he's like, I'm not a Cylon, and then they bring the other one, and he's like, okay, so maybe I'm a Cylon.
Ah, damn. Sorry, brother.
It's important to note that the Brother Cavil that we see on Galactica is, to some extent, the center of the resistance, the Cylon resistance on Galactica. He's the one who sent, for example, our friend the Weasel to try and suicide bomb. The suicide bomber Dharma. He's the one who was handling Caprica Boomer, and he was the one that sent the 6 that accused Gaius Baltar. Again, early in 33, actually. So he's been He's been doing some stuff in the background, and now he's been caught.
Yeah.
And that particular model, the Brother Cavill one from Galactica, is the main antagonist. I'll put it that way. He is the main antagonist. He will be the leader of the Cylons.
That makes
sense. Or at
sense.
least the face of the Cavills, who are collectively the leaders of the Cylons.
Indeed.
The other Cavill has an interesting story, which is told in the plan, which we will see when we see
At
the
a later
plan.
date. Indeed.
And yeah, at a later date. We get Samuel Anders back. They get reacquainted. Lee introduces himself to Anders, and there is a very awkward scene. Because of course, Dharma's now in a relationship with Duala.
Yes.
We get that scene that we talked about, where both Cavills end up in the jail, and they talk about it, and they say that a message of 2 Cylon heroes have convinced the rest of the Cylons that the attack on the colonies was a mistake.
Yeah.
And they state that the Cylons were off to go find their own unique path to enlightenment. Task successful? ? And that they've decided to offer humanity a reprieve. And we see the differences there, with one Cavill delivering the information, and the other Cavill going, well, I don't think this is right.
Yeah.
That other Cavill being, of course, Brother Cavill, who, as previously mentioned, will be coming back.
Yes, he's the charger one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's certainly
and
interesting.
then it gets to election day, and the votes are all being counted in, and Baltar has a lead over Roslin, and then certain members of the military who have an invested interest in Laura Roslin remaining president, mostly for the fact that it will stop Tom Zarek from getting any power.
Indeed.
Did a little naughty.
They did.
And then got caught doing a little bit of a naughty.
Yeah,
We do a little election fraud.
Quite the lucky coincidence.
Yes, so Ty is forced to tell the truth gets caught out by Gator, he's then forced to tell the truth to Adama, who then brings it up with Roslin, who realizes what's happened, and that she didn't authorize it. At least we assume she didn't authorize it, but she did know that her aide Tori Foster, who's introduced this episode, was planning something to try and gain more votes, and she didn't think it was this. And they end up doing a recount, and it ends up being a quote-unquote tabulating error. Baltar knows that's phony, but sort of takes it because he's won anyway, and declares that they will settle on New Caprica, which is where they go to.
Yeah.
And after the victory, Baltar meets with Guinan.
Yeah.
And says something along the lines of, it's safe, it's happy, I'm in charge, I can protect you now. And she goes, no, you need to surrender to the Cylons. It's like, no, I don't need to do that.
Yep.
And they end up leaving on somewhat bad terms.
Yep.
And then Guinan destroys Cloud9 with the nuke.
Yep.
And several other ships.
Made sense, maybe? I don't know.
She does it because she wants to die still. And
she could have done that without nuking a whole bunch of other people.
Yes, but still a Cylon, still believing in the in at least what she believes in. And her experiences with humans have not been very good.
You know, it's a very good point.
And it kills several other ships in the radius. Lots of people die, and Baltar is told that might be a Cylon attack, and they need to get away. But Baltar insists on settling on New Caprica.
Yep, and also that it's not his fault, which it is.
Which it is, yes. And then the show turns around and hits you with a baseball bat, because next scene opens 380 days later.
Which is okay. I accept that time skip. That was pretty good.
So we have now skipped forward over a year. There is a city called New Caprica City, which is a bunch of collective tents and a few buildings that
It's
Gaius
a
has
tiny
built.
city.
Everyone's a bit miserable. There's no real supplies around everywhere, but people are trying to make it work. Most of the ships have landed. There are a few in orbit which can't, protected by Galactica and Pegasus, which are now on exceedingly low crew numbers.
Yeah.
But put it in context, it's around like 2,000, 5,000 per Battlestar. They're down in the hundreds at this point.
Yeah.
In terms of their actual combat readiness, they are basically combat ineffective. Admiral Adama still in command of the Galactica, but Colonel Tai has moved down to the planet, so he is now assisted by Hilo. Lee is still in command of Pegasus, but he is now assisted by Duala.
Which is not awful.
Yeah.
They're all pretty cool. Duala's a bit less good now, but
still the seat of presidential power. They haven't even got around to building a new presidential palace yet. They've only really built power plants and very necessary stuff. All the plans they were insisting
the thing, and that was it.
Yeah, that they insisted they'd get done in like 1 year haven't come to pass, and Colonial 1 is a mess. It's a bachelor pad, and Voltar is in there doing Voltar things. Laura Roslin, and this is something that we've actually missed. I think we missed it from one of the other episodes. But no, where did that happen?
I don't know what we're talking about.
So Sharon gives birth.
Yes.
At some point.
Oh shoot, we did. That's quite important.
Yes, yeah. Sharon gave birth.
That was in Captain's Hand. No, that was in Downloaded.
Captain's Hand.
That was in Downloaded, and you were not here, and then we kind of carried on. Yeah.
Whoops. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So Sharon gives birth to Hera. Queen of the Gods.
Yes, that one.
And she then, quote unquote, dies right afterwards, and it's revealed at the end of the episode that no, instead what has happened is our friend Laura Roslin has basically stolen the child and gave her off to her adoption to try and hide the fact and prevent the Cylons from coming after them, in the hope that the Cylons, who they know are now after basically interbreeding to continue, for whatever reason, whether it's religious or maybe necessary, we'll find out later, won't come after them because it's proven to be a failure again.
Indeed.
So, having lost the election, she now runs a makeshift school, which is assisted by Maya, who is the person who adopted Hera.
Yeah.
Tyrell is the leader of a worker union as well.
Which is pretty great. Six is also Head Six when she finds out that Gaius apparently failed to protect their child. I also thought it was a
and
bit
she gets
dumb,
very angry.
because it's like, but the prophecy said the child would live, and it's like, so maybe the child's not dead.
Is she acting for Gaius, or is she acting because that's what, as far as Gaius knows?
Well, exactly. This is why it is
something
interesting discussion.
Something to discuss as we get more info on the head.
As we go on.
/head Gaius.
Yes.
Anders marries Cara. So Anders marries Starbuck, and she's pregnant as well. But
and he's not well.
Anders is sick, and Starbuck's trying to get medical supplies off Commander Adama. Initially, trying to get it off Doc Cottle. Yeah, I think there's like a few mini-series episodes that I can not find which explain sort of that, but the basic gist is there might have been a bit of a rendezvous somewhere in the time of arriving and like actually settling down on New Capra. I can't remember whether it's a deleted scene or whether it's part of a web episode. I'll have to check that, but I'm pretty sure there is.
About what?
Basically, it's about them first landing on New Capra.
Okay, right, yeah.
I saw it like ages ago. I can't seem to like find it again, but they end up settling on New Caprica. There's a bit of a party. Adama's down there. There's some stuff with Adama and Roslin, and then
Roslin and Adama also a couple, sort of, or they were,
yes,
kind of.
They are still.
they're cute. Like, it's the one good thing
Yes.
I can say about her not being dead is that they're adorable.
It's where the whole stuff was like where Gaius like starts planning out all the cities and talking about how he's going to do that. I'm 100% sure it is out there, but I haven't been able to find it. I'll keep looking for it, and if I do find it, we'll watch it.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything goes really, really badly wrong because the Cylons show up. And thereafter, New Caprica as well.
Mm-hmm.
Lee
Reasons.
cuts off his response to Starbuck and gets into contact with his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And both him and Hilo convince Adama that they are outmatched. They're unable to defend the colony.
Mm-hmm.
So, taking the executive decision, Adama retreats, but states he will be back.
I'll be back.
Gator, who's the presidential aide at this point, runs to Baltar, informs him that the fleet has jumped away, the Cylons are here, and we see raiders begin to fly low over the settlement.
Yep.
We get the human copy of Leoben, his return.
Yeah, favorite Cylon.
Cara face, asking bedridden Anders. And President Gaius Baltar meets with the Cylons, who insist they will not attack unless the humans resist. They then explain that New Caprica was found by accident when they detected, from over a light way away, the signature of a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
The one that destroyed Cloud9.
Baltar's clever plan
has now backfired well and truly. We get Head 6 pop up and go Judgment Day.
Yeah.
We get Caprica 6's return and Boomer's return as they are part of that delegation.
Yeah.
Mission failed successfully, I guess.
Something like that.
I mean, at least the Cylons are not trying to kill everyone immediately. And
It's
they're
true.
trying
It's
to live
not going to be a massacre, and we can build a resistance.
Because the assumption is that if they could do it once with Hilo, if they could try and do it again, but at the same time, there's some very colonial themes there because they're also trying to civilize the humans, which that's never gone well.
No.
No.
Humans don't like being told what to do.
Yep. So the Cylons force him basically to sign over the colonials to them. Officially, that means, by the way, that the 12 colonies of Kobo are now annexed by the Cylon Empire.
Yep.
At least until such a time as they can break free again.
Yep.
It also makes Adama an enemy of the state.
Yeah.
And we get the last scene, which is Starbuck, Ty, Roslyn, and Tyrrell, and several others, including Ellen, watching on as the Cylon Centurions march through New Caprica.
Yeah.
And vowing to resist. And that is the end of season 2.
Which, it's quite the ending.
It is. It was
certainly pretty big again.
It is the beginning of the New Caprica arc. Lay down your burdens. We have a couple of episodes which in season 3 we'll be looking at, which includes the very obviously titled Occupation and Precipice, followed by an episode that I can't tell you its name because it's a spoiler.
Please don't tell us things.
Spoiler, indeed.
There
we are.
No information on how that's going to end because, again, it's a very good arc and I like it a lot, and I'm not going to talk about it.
Indeed.
I want to talk about it, but we obviously can't because there's certain things that will be so amazing the first time.
Yeah. We will discuss this when we do our review of Season 3, which will be coming fairly soon, because we are now only one series away from going back to Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, we've got to finish Stranger Things 2, and then we'll be back on BSG.
So it won't be super far.
That's true. Cool.
Potentially sometime in 2 months. Although you will not be hearing it until long after this is left, because we have a surprisingly large amount of backlog when it comes to this.
It's true.
You guys have taken a lot of projects.
Yes. And the problem is we then get, because we want to do stuff that we like, like Stranger Things, Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have this thing called Disney that keeps on pumping out like show after show after show.
You also
But
like
when the
like
latest ones come out,
reputation.
it tangles
So-
you up.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, okay. So personal enjoyment rating.
Yeah, I think just quickly we'll just do a few
go for it.
overviews. So
Sure.
talking about like the music,
True.
very good music.
Very good music again.
Um,
Absolutely.
one of my favourite tunes from the series, Something Dark is Coming, is in Lay Down Your Burdens, which is an incredible tune. Prelude to War is also very good. Once again, Bear McCready.
Bear McCready is great. Yeah. Surprising no one.
Absolutely surprising no one. Visual effects are quite good, apart from some stuff with the Cylons. But most of like the visuals on the spaceships are amazing. We get some very good battles, particularly in Resurrection Ship and really Resurrection Ship and some of the stuff at New Cobalt. We don't really get many battles after that. That will change, but we'll have to wait for that. And yeah, I think most of the actors once again proved to be good, despite certain episodes being more of duds than actual good episodes. And with that, yeah, I guess we'll go on to personal ratings. So, for myself, when it comes to personal ratings, I really like Season 2. I like it a bit more than I like Season 3, although I think some of the plot lines in Season 3 are better. Although that is not necessarily the opinion of the wider community. So I would give this probably a 10 out of 10, despite its flaws. Although I'm sure many of you will disagree with that. There are some bad episodes, but I don't find them anywhere near as bad as necessarily they could have been. The issues that bug people don't really bug me with them. And I absolutely love the Pegasus arc. I love the beginning of the new Caprica arc, and I love the Cobalt arc. So I really like this series. And of course, it has my favourite episode as well. So, Holly, if you want to take it from there. Hello?
Or not? I'll go for mine next.
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah,
I think Ollie might be away from his PC.
Yes. I mean, I quite enjoyed it. I definitely loved. I mean, season 1, we went from running away from planet to we're still running away, and now the commander's been shot. You know, it was the setup of a lot of things. There was learning a lot of basics, but there wasn't too much going on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But then there's all sorts that happens in this season. You know, there's returning back to Caprica. There's the whole like revealing of the attempt to reproduce and the problems the Cylons are having. The investigation of how they come back to life and the effects them coming back to life has. So Pegasus coming along, and the idea of, you know, this wasn't inevitable that they were going to survive and try and thrive. They could have had a very different outcome indeed. Political shenanigans are always fun. I quite enjoy them a lot of the time.
We now have President Gaius Baltar.
President Baltar, we joked about so much.
We joked about for so much, and
it actually happened.
I'd hoped that he'd be better.
Yeah,
I really did.
Yeah,
but things have got to get worse before they get better.
Yeah, but no, I very much enjoyed this. I think I enjoyed it more than the first season. Very fun. I'm going to give it a 9.43 out of 10.
Nice.
Okay.
Ollie, you want to go next?
Have you guys done yours already? I kind of.
Steven's not done
his. I've done mine.
What was yours, Tom?
I said 10 out of 10 because it's my favourite season of the entire
that makes
series.
sense.
Despite its flaws.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember what I gave season 1.
Uh,
I think it's around like 8
I
or
think it's
7.
probably an 8 or a 9. And this is probably the same, probably an 8 at the moment. I need to go back and probably at some point rewatch it, and then it might go up or it might go down. There's some really high highs, but there's some really low lows for me. And
Yeah, I understand
depending
that.
on how the overall show ends, those will either get better or worse.
Yes.
If President Roslin survives the whole thing, then that'll make this season just worse for me. Because they spend so much of the first season being like, "You'll get us to Earth, but you will not make it there yourself." Oh, the cancer's cured. So that's something. Obviously, that does not mean she's guaranteed to survive and get to Earth. Like I enjoy her relationship with Boltar, and with with the Dharma and all that stuff. She's a great actress, obviously. But just the setup of what we got, and then be like, oh, I guess she's still here, which is like sounds odd because again, I really like her character, but it's the kind of tragedy that we were almost promised has not come to pass. So if the end of the show ends with her being like, well, I guess the prophecy was wrong, especially with her being so into the prophecies this whole time.
When we do get to season 4, there's a lot more that we can discuss regarding the prophecies and its theories. Things begin to become
You
clearer, and there's a particular. I'm just going to say there's a particular theory I subscribe to that I follow, but I won't share it here. What it is.
Yeah. So basically, yeah,
quickly
depending on how the
message
show
that to me?
ends,
will affect my overall opinion of this season. More so because of that decision. But yeah, there's some great stuff. Like Pegasus is great. Mr. Kovalak is great. Lay Down Your Burdens is great. A lot of the human stuff is dumb. But occasionally they do it right. Humans are dumb. Like humans were dumb in the first season, but there's just a lot of decisions in this which are just like, really, what? I don't even understand why
The logic.
you would think this is a logical thing to do.
Yep,
I
fair
could just
enough.
about excuse it sometimes with the first season, but less so here. So I'm going to stick with an 8. It's still very, very good. But I'll at some point, and like I said, I love Downloaded. But after we watch the season, and it'll either be like, yeah, it's not as bad as I remember. Actually, I actually quite enjoyed that this time, or be like, yeah, I still don't like this. So
yeah,
that's what I would
Stephen,
say.
you were saying something right before Ollie started
I
speaking.
was just
again.
gonna say that theory you were just mentioning. Can you type it out to me, and I'll type out the spice later. But yeah. So my overall opinion.
Yeah, your overall opinions.
Yeah, your opinion.
I love season 2. Out of every one of the Galactica seasons, I found that they got their footing from season 1. They built everything up and established it. Then they started to play it out. They not play it out, play it off. They it finally had a direction. They knew where they were starting to head because of the shrine that took them to Earth or showed them where Earth was. I liked that because it felt like you were getting somewhere and there was a hope to it. Because of that, it became, and then because of that moment, right into Resurrection / Pegasus / the mini arc of that season 2. I rate it as a 10 because of how much I like it. I would be lying if I said you already heard me go when we were discussing Sacrifice and Black Market. I liked those for what they did for characters. I liked how with Black Market it got rid of Fisk and started to set the way up for Lee to later take over the Pegasus. And I like how it showed Lee being aware the black market has to exist, that the ship can't run without it because it's just how the ship works, the fleet works, and I liked that. But that doesn't necessarily mean I liked everything about it. Sacrifice. I wish they'd. I agree with what you said. I wish that they'd said, "Oh, her husband was on the ship that was destroyed in 33.3," or anything like that. If they'd done anything to justify, instead of just a Cylon attack, there were so many valid episodes they could have pulled a Cylon attack from, and they just went with a Cylon attack.
Yeah.
So That coupled with the fact it's how they killed Billy. I liked Billy as a character a lot, and him dying caught me off guard. I was like, oh. And I have to be honest, Tori, I don't like her quite the same. That's just a me thing.
That's fair. I've yet to form an opinion because we've not seen her too much yet. But she's no Billy, that's for sure.
No. You'll get your own opinions of
in the show.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
Laura Adama says that in the show.
That sounds
I
right.
think Billy is a lot more personable at times. Whereas Tori, you'll see Tori's character as the show goes.
Indeed.
But aside from that, and aside from Gaius Baltar thinking with the wrong, well, you know what I mean, thinking with the wrong mind and making awful choices, I really like the second half of the series. Scar was awesome. Downloaded was awesome. Captain's Hand was pretty good. Lay Down Your Burdens. I saw the wrong version of it because I watched it on iPlayer and I didn't see the proper extended Lay Down Your Burdens. I got to see New Caprica for like 5-10 minutes. So basically, later on, after I finished the show, I went back and was like, hang on a minute, there's extended cuts, and I wiki summoned them, but you guys have seen the proper version of Lay Down Your Burdens. So if I like Lay Down Your Burdens, missing all the New Caprica content that really details it, like literally the iPlayer version is, we're on New Caprica. Here's where everyone is. The ships are really. Oh, look, the Cylons are here. It literally
up pretty fast, yeah.
It comes up so fast, and I was a bit disappointed. But it's redeemed by the fact that wasn't their original intention, and they shot more.
It's longer,
but
yeah. That makes
stupid
sense.
broadcast choices.
Yeah.
They did the same with Razor. They cut it on iPlayer. You guys have clearly found the superior source. Anyway.
Indeed.
I bought the versions.
Yeah, which will be
That's the perfect source. Supporting the original release. But yeah,
I've spotted it twice as a Blu-ray as well.
Could be worse. I've bought Borderlands 2 5 times. Don't ask.
Steven.
What? It's one of my favourite games.
I did fair.
Anyway, what was I going to say? Yeah.
Dark Souls 4 times. So.
It's easy enough to do. Yes, Lay Down Your Burdens Part 1 and 2. I love that. I love the way you can see how everyone kind of undergoes their character degradation because they've stopped running. They've finally relaxed, and I mean, Baltar just starts sleeping with everything.
Everything, yeah.
Has Lee started to what's the word I'm looking for here?
Lee is with
he's with D.
Dwala.
Yeah. No, has his I can't think of the way to describe it because I can't remember if it happens after the time skip at the end of Lay Down Your Burdens, or it's not a big change, but it's
his you mean the weight he puts on?
Yeah, he's put on the weight, yeah. See, I found that was kind of funny as well, the way that he's like everything is relaxed so much. Lee got fat.
I didn't. I don't remember that. I didn't notice that.
I can't remember if that's. I cannot honestly remember if that's a change from that episode or whether it's because he just got fat for them, so they just made it retroactively from the next season. But yes, he is supposed to be fat at this point.
I see. Because he's got less to do and stuff, so it makes a degree of sense.
He doesn't need to be. He's not in a Viper anymore. So he doesn't need to be at peak physical strength in order to control the Viper.
Relax.
So he can let himself go.
Indeed. Okay then.
You might say.
Right. There we are. Well, that's a 2.5 hour episode almost, so we're going to split this.
Yeah, that's going to get split.
Good job, Craig, for not abandoning us. And thank you everyone for listening. Thank you guys for joining. This is our 100th episode. We're going to do a big episode at some point. With more people, which was going to be our 100th episode, but that's just not panned out, so it will be this. This is 100 and 101st, I guess.
We'll have a 100th episode celebration. That will be the 101st episode.
Or 110th at this point, honestly, but there we are. Season 3 soon. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
See you all again.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Cabincast. For more episodes, go to www.cabincast.podbean.com or use the Podbean app. You can now also find us on iTunes and Pocket Casts under Cabincast and on YouTube. There are those here are quite behind. Finally, you can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Cabincast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.